Hello everyone, Pithy here, and I'm back with another episode of Pithy's Budget Brews, and today we're going to talk about Archides, the Strategist. And what Archides does is, Archides is a card that really is built for defenders. Everything that he does, is defender related. So he's a 4-mana 3/5 with Flying Vigilance. Whenever a creature with Defender enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Each creature you control with Defender assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power, and can attack as though it didn't have Defender. So basically he is a assault formation, and actually he's a Doran and a Rolling Stones in one card with a draw added to him as well. So this, in my opinion, is the most powerful Elder Dragon from the set, Core 19. Although it is very debatable who is the most powerful. Archides obviously isn't the most standard playable, but in Commander I think this card is very, very good, and it gives defenders a really good support card that they really needed, and the leader that they deserve. So since we're playing a defender tribal deck, we have cards that really care about our defenders. So we have Perimeter Captain, 1 mana 0/4 defender. Whenever a creature you control with defender blocks, you may gain 2 life. Not really important. The important part to this card, it is as a 0/4 for 1 mana. So with Archides in play, he's essentially a 4/4 attacker for 1 mana, which is super good, super efficient, and he's a very powerful card. And even if we're just blocking as well, like we have our Summoning Sick Walls block, we're still gaining 2 life. So like we're just like blocking all the damage and basically just gaining 2 life too. Or sometimes maybe people trample over, well, we just gain life back out of that. Two of the most important cards in the deck are this one and the next one. Axebane Guardian, 3 mana 0/3 defender. Tap, add X mana in any combination of colors to your mana pool where X is the number of creatures with defender you control. So this just can let us go crazy. It can give us so much mana so quickly, it is ridiculous. And Overgrown Battlements is the same thing. 2 mana for an 0/4 defender, add green to your mana pool for each creature with defender you control. Now this one does have a bit of a downside as opposed to Axebane, which makes any color. Overgrown only makes green. So it's a bit weaker than Axebane, but both of these cards are very essential to basically dumping, or quote, dumping your whole hand, because if you have a bunch of defenders, you're not really dumping your hand if Archides is in play, because you just refill your hand each time you put a defender into play. Doorkeeper, 2 mana 0/4 defender, 3 mana 2 blue, 2 and a blue. Tap, target player puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, where X is the number of creatures with defenders you control. So, if we're really in a situation where Archides has been shut out of the game, and all of our other options for like attacking or doing anything like that are just gone, then we have Doorkeeper. Doorkeeper is not very effective, since mill isn't really a good strategy in Commander, because you gotta mill a lot of cards. And since we're not a mill deck, Doorkeeper's not really that great, due to not really milling anything prior to doing Doorkeeper. But it is a win condition that is not an aggressive one, and it is definitely something that you really do need. The one that's better than this is the Vent Sentinel, which is the deal damage equal to the number of defenders you control. But that one is obviously in red, so we can't play that one. But Doorkeeper is still fine for an alternate win condition. So here's our aggressive 1-drop, 2-drop creatures, and these are not all of them, these are just a few. So Taproot Kami, 1 mana for an O-star. Defender, its toughness is equal to the number of forests in play, so it counts every forest on the battlefield, no matter if it's your forest or your opponent's forests, and it may block as though it had flying, which means it has reach. So basically, it is just a 1 mana XX. It can be all the way from 10, or it can be 2. But it progressively gets stronger the more forests are played, which is something that's very key, and is very cheap, efficient with Defender. Next we got Dragon Eyes Sentry, 1 mana for a 1/3 Defender First Strike. So this is a 1 mana 3/3 with First Strike with Arcades, which is pretty good, or Arcades. Not really much to say, it's just a common. You know, same with a lot of these walls. Wall of Junk, 2 mana 07. Whenever it blocks turn to its owner's hand at the end of combat, this thing will probably not be blocking. It'll be going in for 7. 2 mana 7/7s are pretty ridiculous, and you know. Also, this doesn't have the Defender thing, but it is a Defender because this is from Urza's Saga, and for some reason they don't have Defender. But Wall of Junk does have Defender. So Wall of Tangle Core, 2 mana for 06, slightly weaker than Wall of Junk, but it also has the ability to gain reach by paying 1 green, so it's actually not that bad. And these are just a few of them. There are a couple, or actually there's like really 2 that are really good. There's a 1 mana 08, and I believe it has flying. Well, it's Wall of Shards. With upkeep, gain 1 life. Your target opponent gains a life. And Shield Sphere, which are really good ones, but they're like too expensive for the budget, and I was like, I'm not gonna try to fit them in. Alright, so now basically what we have here is our lords, and quote lords. So we got Stalwart Shieldbearers, 2 mana for 03 Defender. Other creatures you control with Defender get +0/+2. So in reality, what this is, it is a +2/+2 to Defenders. Because of Arcades, how he works, he makes it where they assign power equal to their toughness instead of their power. So this is a +2/+2 Lord, essentially, and for 2 mana, which is pretty insane if you think about it in that way. But otherwise, it's really good to just make your defenders even bigger, like if you really need to have like blocking stuff. So either way, this card's good on the offensive or on the defensive. Oathsworn Giant, 6 mana, 3/4. Vigilance. Other creatures you control get +0/+2 and have Vigilance. So this is another one that's like the same way as Stalwart Shieldbearers, except for it's 6 mana, because there's no other like Defender Lord type thing. Like, there's not really too many creatures that pump toughness instead of power. So Oathsworn Giant is the best option for that. It also does give Vigilance, so your walls get to do what the walls are meant to do, block, as well as attack too. So it's actually very powerful in that sense. We have Sword of the Parents, 4 mana, as long as a creature is tapped, type creatures you control get to +2/+0. As long as a creature is untapped, untapped creatures you control get +0/+2. So what we're doing with Sword of Parents, we're equipping this to Arcades, and we're going to be attacking with him, and they're going to give our creatures +0/+2. Because he has Vigilance, he'll never tap, so it's always just pumping our walls, and it's adding to toughness instead of power, which is essential because of other cards in our deck. But we can also, if we really need to, we can not attack with the creature if we don't have anything that gives us Vigilance. and we don't have Arcades in play. But there's like a few creatures with Vigilance, so it's not too big of a problem, I don't think, about this, but it's very good sword. Next up we got our backup Arcades. So our best backup Arcades is Assault Formation. 2 mana for each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power, and then if it can make target defender or target creature with defender can attack, and then it's also a toughness pump for 3 mana. So this is basically just a backup Arcades. This is like the best one because it basically does what Arcades does, except that you have to pay green mana in order for you to attack. But in all honesty, like, it's not really that big of a downside at that point because you kind of need to attack to end the game. So paying 1 green isn't really a big deal for you. Rolling Stones, 2 mana. Walls can attack as though they were not walls. So this is not really that great because we have to have ways to really make them assign damage equal to the toughness, and there's not that many cards that do that. But there are a few that do have power, and that's the kind of thing that's there, you know, like maybe we could find some way to actually get bypass all of the stuff there, you know. But it's definitely a good inclusion because it does give you an option to have a backup one, like, because Assault Formation is very important, and so is Arcades. Like, those two are the most important cards in the deck, or else the deck doesn't function very well without the two, because you're just literally attacking with 0 powered creatures for the most part. Wake-Stone Gargoyle is the exact same thing as Rolling Stones, except attached to a 3/4 flying 4 mana body. You know, pay 2 mana, creatures you control with Defender can attack as though they didn't have Defender. It's basically the same thing as the targeted effect of Assault Formation and Rolling Stones. Except Rolling Stones, I think, only applies to walls, I want to say. But it's been a while since I've looked at this card. But yeah, Wake-Stone Gargoyle is literally just another backup option to Arcades. That's really the big thing. And also, it does have power too, so like it can get in for damage, and it's flying, so it's actually pretty good. So we have some card draw. We don't really have much because there's not really too many options for our deck. Because a lot of the card draw in like green is focused on creatures with X power entering the battlefield or stuff like that. So Abzan Beast Mastery, at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if you control a creature with the greatest toughness or tied for the greatest toughness. So while this is not really a good card in the sense of very aggressive creature, because we like to have our walls that have big butts, so we can get in with Arcades. This is just a 2/1. You know, like, it's not really that impressive in terms of the body, but the reason it's in there is just to draw a card. That's the only reason that you're going to be playing this card, is because walls really lack a lot of card draw for their specific quote tribe. Because like your main source of card draw in this deck is Arcades himself, but you have your backup ways, which is Abzan Beast Mastery, you know. So there's not, and he's not even really a good one, but that's basically what you got. And then Wall of Mulch, 2 mana, 0/4, Defender, pay green, sack a wall, draw a card. If we are in a stage where we really need to sack our walls to draw cards because we're just in a really bad position, there we go, we got it. And it's actually not that bad. Paying green to draw a card and sack a wall isn't too bad. Could be worse. Now we got our finishers, and now these are not the typical finishers you would see in normal decks. So we got Tower Defense, 2 mana, creatures you control get +0/+5 and gain rage until other turns. Also an instant, which is very relevant. And then we have Bar the Doors, 2 mana or 3 mana, instant, creatures you control get +0/+4 until end of turn. And then we have Solidarity, 3 mana, 4 mana. Creatures you control get +0/+5 until end of turn. It's also an instant. So, basically, these are the equivalent to Overrun. These are our overruns in the deck. These are cheap. These are very powerful because with Arcades in play, this is +5/+5. This is +4/+4 and +5/+5 to all your creatures. So you're basically just destroying someone out of the game very, very early. And the problem with these is they are a one-time thing. You know, that's kind of the big deal. But they are very powerful if you're going with like a very early kill on someone, like someone that you think that is probably maybe a turn away from wiping the board. Well, you can just execute them straight up, so it kind of eliminates that, you know, because if you do get wiped, it's really bad for you. And these are a way to like push damage through. Also, not to mention, you could probably trade with huge creatures too. Or not trade, but like kill huge creatures. Because you're going to have so much toughness they can't get past it. Alright, so next up, this is a card that I actually really like in the deck. Song of Freyalise, 2 mana, until it's a saga, so it has 3 different stages. Its first 2 stages are until your next turn, creatures you control add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. And then 3, it has put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible until end of turn. So, while this isn't as powerful in terms of raw power as the pump spells, the one-time pump spells, what Song of Freyalise does, it allows you to fill the board with a whole bunch of creatures really quick, because each of your creatures add 1 mana. So, you have 2 turns to do this, and then on the 3rd turn, you just get in for a ton of damage, and you don't lose anything. And you get to keep them back as blockers, which is something that's very good. They have Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible, which is a nasty combo. And this is only a common, or an uncommon, which is pretty insane power for an uncommon, I think. But like, oof. This is a really good card. Plus, it's mana fixing too. Like, sometimes you really need to get mana fixing. Song of Freyalise is there. Now, since our cards are very important to us, we really don't want Arcades to die a lot, or else we won't be able to really cast them too many more times. We have some protection cards. Shalai, Voice of Plenty, 4 mana, 3/4, flying. You, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control have hexproof. That's the most important part of the card. It also has 6 mana, put +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. We don't need that. We don't want that. You probably won't ever be activating that ability in most cases, but who knows. Lightning Greaves, 2 mana, after the creature has Haste and Shroud, equips 0. This is one of the most important cards because it also gives our walls haste. And we can get in for more damage if we really want to. Swiftfoot Boost, same thing. It gives Hexproof instead of Shroud, but it has a equip cost of 1. So it's the exact same thing as Lightning Greaves, except a little bit weaker, but a bit more of an upside too, because Hexproof allows you to target your stuff. Your opponents just can't target your stuff. So these are very important because, like I said, Arcades is the most important card in the deck, and if he goes down, a lot of our cards just do nothing. They just block. That's all they do. And if he dies too many times and we can't cast him again, it is a real pain because now we have to find our assault formation, only real backup way, and it's pretty brutal to have to do that. So now I get some fun cards in the deck. These are some things that I find is really funny, but like people might think they're weird. But your main purpose for your walls is to block. So we have, because creatures can't get past our toughness more than likely. So we have Sarah's Blessing, 2 mana, creatures you control have Vigilance. Simple. Brave the Sands, 2 mana, creatures you control have Vigilance. Each creature you control can block an additional creature each combat. So these two just allow us to attack and have our blockers back. So that way we are not just dying straight up to an all-out attack against us, because we're in a situation where if we swing all out, we have maybe one blocker with our Arcades, and the deck is definitely not very good whenever you start losing tons of life really fast. Even though you can dish out just as much damage, it's just, ooh, it's pretty brutal. And also, so we can push damage through, we have Primal Rage. 2 mana, creatures you control have trample. This is just very important. Defenders, the problem with the defenders is people can just block them very easy and not take any damage at all. So we have Primal Rage in here for trample, in case you really do need it. And Tetsuko Umezawa Fugitive. 2 mana, 1/3, creatures you control power or toughness 1 or less, can't be blocked. A majority of our walls have 1 power or less, and also there's a few creatures with toughness 1. So basically, about like, I would say a majority of our deck is unblockable. Now, this is definitely not as good as Sidar Kondo, which does 2 power or less, which that helps us have more creatures unblockable, and also affects everybody too. So, except for you, of course, because your opponents can't block creatures you control that have flying. They have to have flying or reach in order to block creatures you control, and it's a 2/5. So it also benefits from having high toughness for assault formation. But that's also an expensive card, so Tetsuko is our budget option for it. And I actually really do like the card. I think that it'll be very good to push damage through, and that's really what the purpose of the last 2 cards on this slide are, is to push damage through. So now we got some fun cards. Normally I wouldn't include board wipes, but these are just so fun in this deck because our walls have little to no power. So whenever we play these, it's just fun. So Slaughter the Strong, 3 mana, sorcery. Each player chooses any number of creatures he or she controls with total power 4 or less, then sacrifices all the other creatures he or she controls. So if we don't have Arcades in play, we can Slaughter the Strong and probably keep our whole board. And that is just insane. That is a one-way board wipe. It does not affect me, and it just wipes out every other creature. I mean, they do get to keep probably 1 or 2 creatures, but then like we have a huge board of creatures, it really doesn't even matter. Wave of Reckoning, 5 mana, each creature deals to itself damage equal to its power. So basically what it says is each creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. So like basically if you had a 5, it would hit your creature for 5. And if it had, obviously if it dealt the damage. So the purpose of this card is to also be a one-sided board wipe. And it is, I think we have maybe 2 or 3 creatures that actually kill themselves with Wave of Reckoning, but none of our walls do anything of the sort. Our walls will live, they will be happy, and probably once you do this, you probably just win the game. Fell the Mighty. So this is another one, 5 mana, destroy all creatures with power greater than target creature's power. So we have a bunch of 0-powered creatures. So if we target a 0-powered creature, it kills all 0-powered creatures. Or creatures above 0 power, which is pretty much all of them. So you will definitely be one-side wiping people. Now unfortunately, this is keeping in mind that you don't have Arcades in play. Because if you have Arcades in play, he will die to this, and you won't be able to win that turn, or kill someone that turn. Unless you select 3. But 3 gives, they might be able to keep their like 1 or 2 power creatures, so they might have blockers, so they might actually stay alive. So something that would be really good play with this is Fell the Mighty, and then play Arcades, so that way that the board's clear, and then you just kill everyone. If you don't have Arcades in play. But these are definitely good to keep around.
whenever he dies. Well, Wave of Reckoning is easily the better card for board wipes than Fell the Mighty is for this deck, with Arcades in play. And Slaughter the Strong definitely isn't really that great either. Because we do have a few walls that do have power, and other few cards that do have power. So, it's one of those things. And that is the deck. As of the time of recording this deck is $89 and 17 ticks on Magic Online. And I think the only reason why it's that expensive is because of like a few cards in the deck on Magic Online are just really expensive. So I will be including a non-budget version of this deck, and I think it's only like 3 or 4 changes to the list. I really like this deck. I think it's really fun, and I think it's just a great pickup. There's also a card that I would like to talk about that I didn't put on the slide on the slides. Dragon Throne of Tarkir. So Dragon Throne of Tarkir is really good in this deck because if you equip it to Arcades, he becomes a defender, and then he basically becomes a 5/5 flying vigilance dragon for 4 mana, which is very powerful. And then you can swing in and then tap him, and then you pump your guys up by 3, and it is a really powerful thing to do because that gives you like another like pump effect, and it's just very good, and it also buffs Arcades as well because he can attack. So it's something that's very good and something that's very strong to think about. There are a few cards you can change out if you really wanted to. I decided to go for a more I didn't go all in on walls. I do have some cards that can deal with stuff. So like I have like Kuswali Pride Mages, not Path to Exile, but Swords to Plowshares, and like a bunch of removal stuff. And I also have Eternal Witness, Regrowth to get back certain cards, like Assault Formation. So there's a bit of that. So there's removal. So this deck can actually do things and actually be able to deal with other people's stuff, which is something that is very good. It's an aggressive deck that can also deal with other people's things, which is very good. You don't see that very often. So if you liked the deck, leave a comment and like the video, and I'll see you guys next time.